Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Our goal today is to give you a little background about Bush Foundation and then some more specifics about the position and the hiring process. So just to start, I'll just introduce you to who is here today, or I'll have them introduce themselves. So I am Kim David. I'll be running logistics today and also manage some of the logistics of this hiring process. Um, Anita, if you want to let people know your title and what you're doing with this search. Yeah.
Yes, happy to. Thank you all for being here. I'm Anita Patel. I'm the Vice President of Grant Making, and I'm the hiring manager for this role.
Nice. Thanks. Joni?
Hello, I'm Joni Chasich. I'm the talent and HR manager here at Bush Foundation, and I'll be probably reviewing applications, interacting with some candidates, helping with logistics.
Cool. Thank you. And Stephanie?
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us and listening to this. I'm the Talent Learning and Evaluation Director here at the Bush Foundation. And so I wear two hats most days. The hat I'm wearing as part of this search process is in the talent and HR side of my job, but I get to interact with the Grantmaking Officer and the Grantmaker team and the learning and evaluation part of my job. I'm going to be working closely with Joni and with Kim to make sure that we have the best experience possible for any of you who are interested in applying. Thanks for joining today.
Awesome. Thanks. And then also joining us today are Jamie and Jen, our search partners, Ballinger Leafblad. They will introduce themselves in more detail in a little bit. And I'll toss that over to you, Stephanie.
Thank you, Kim. I love being able to start out here with an introduction to the foundation itself, because even those of you who know maybe a lot about what the Bush Foundation does, you may not know about who the Bush is in the Bush Foundation. And so we want to make sure that we ground you in that. We sometimes say that our Bush is not from beans or beer or presidents. The Bush in the Bush Foundation is this Bush, Archie Bush, Archibald, shown here with his wife Edith. Archie was born in Granite Falls, Minnesota. His family business was farming, but that didn't work so well with his asthma. And so he became a bookkeeper instead and went to work at a small firm that was then called Minnesota Mining and Manufacturing, what we now know as 3M. He spent his career there. And when he got to the end of his career, he and his wife Edith set aside the funds that they had earned during that time, and they created the Bush Foundation. So we are lucky to be in a place where the Bush Foundation was set up with few restrictions. Archie wanted to make sure that the foundation in his name did good in the world, and so board and staff members throughout the years have really had the flexibility needed to meet the challenges of the day. A core focus in leadership throughout the Bush Foundation's time, and a whole lot of other good things that hopefully you're aware of or that you'll get to know more about during this process. We've changed that means over the course of the foundation's life, but the flexibility has meant that we're able to point our energy towards high impact work and to adapt to what communities and people in this region need in the moment that we're in. Since 1953, the Bush Foundation has invested more than $1 billion in individuals and communities in this region. Anita's going to tell you a little bit more about what we're doing right now.
Yeah, so what do? We invest in great ideas and the people who power them all across North Dakota, South Dakota, Minnesota, and the 23 Native nations that share that geography. This is both our tagline, but it's also our strategy to advance our purpose. We know that the region we work in and with is really large. It's diverse in a lot of ways. And so as we do our work, we're always thinking about context and how we can best serve people all across the region. So why do we do it? We do it specifically to inspire and support creative problem solving within and across sectors to make our region better for everyone. And everything we do is to advance this purpose. You'll hear us talk about a lot. It's what ties all of our work together. And then you may be wondering, well, how do you do that? So we specifically work through open grant making programs so that anyone can apply who sees themselves as eligible for the work. And those programs are the Community Innovation Program, the Bush Fellowship, and Ecosystem. And then we do a lot through partners through our Community Grant Partner Program. These all support efforts to develop, test, and spread great ideas that make the region better for everyone, and to inspire, equip, and connect people so that they can more effectively lead change, again, so that this region can be a place where every person can thrive. A lot of our work is about capacity building and leadership development in communities, in organizations, and of course, starting first with individuals.
I'm smiling, but you can't see me smile. So now I'm gonna smile and maybe you'll get to see me smile. Um, I'm still seeing Anita on screen. I don't know if it switched or not. I don't know. Anyway, I'm gonna talk. This is a photo of our recent staff retreat. There are 36 of us here on staff at the Bush Foundation. 33 of the 36 of us live in our Twin Cities near our headquarters in St. Paul. Obviously, the position that we're talking about today is based in South Dakota. We have another grant-making officer who's based in North Dakota, and one of our grant-making directors lives in South Dakota as well. And so the 36 people that are here in these roles come from a wide range of backgrounds and experiences, community organizations, nonprofits, consulting, government, law, the arts, and that's really intentional. It's intentional to not be intentionally focused because we represent a region that is really big and diverse. It makes us better able to serve the communities in this region. The more perspectives and experiences we have on staff, it also makes it a really fun place to work. So many things that if you need a recommendation on a book or a restaurant, an important nonprofit that you want to get more involved with, this group of people has a million opinions on it, and it is really pretty great. I'm going to ask each of the people on the Bush staff to talk a little bit about what they did before they came to the foundation, which I think will give you a little bit of sense of what I'm talking about. Anita, do you want to start?
Very happy to. And I was just thinking about the phrase, what you did before you came to this foundation. That could be lots of things, but I'll put it into the professional context. So I worked across a lot of different nonprofits, really looking at working in the fields of domestic and sexual violence, of immigrant and refugee services, but then spent the bulk of my time, about a decade before coming to the Bush Foundation, creating and leading racial justice and public policy work for the YWCA of Minneapolis. So this thread of how we can create regions, organizations where each person can thrive is really at the heart of so much of what I've loved in my work, and just I'm so honored to get to do it at the Bush Foundation with so many great people. Joni, how about you?
Thanks, Anita. It's good to hear kind of Anita's background. So I've been here over 2 years now, almost 2 years. So prior to arriving at Bush, I actually worked in the federal government for 2 years at the VA Loan Guarantee Division. So I worked as a loan specialist, really helping veterans during COVID avoid foreclosure. And then prior to that, I worked for about 7 years at McKnight Foundation, working as both an HR generalist and as a comp and benefits manager. And in the roles, I had a lot of responsibilities, basically mainly in HR, different facets such as compensation, benefits administration, hiring, recruitment, and payroll. And also really contributed towards some of the organizational changes and redesign work that they had, and policy review updates. And I'll hand it off to Kim.
Thanks, Joni. I've been here about 2 years. It also feels like over 2 years. But my background is in art history, curatorial practice, and nonprofit management, specifically in the arts and culture sector. Right before I came to Bush, I worked at a small nonprofit in East St. Paul, the East Side Freedom Library. And there I was the finance and operations manager. And so my role was really in helping to operationalize and create various processes and absorb a lot of the institutional knowledge that they had with various people, board staff, and try to document things. And in all of my experiences, like professional internships, education, all the things, I've really played a role that's worn a lot of hats, dabbling in a lot of things. And so I also get to do that here with my role as someone that supports staff in a lot of ways and our programs in different ways. And so, yeah, it's been great. Stephanie.
Thanks, Kim. I came to the foundation in 2010, and just my first 5 years at the Bush Foundation actually were in a really different role. So I'll just say a word about that. I worked for the foundation on the Teacher Effectiveness Initiative. It was what drew me to the foundation because I thought it was such an amazing idea to think about how we could support teachers as they were moving through their preparation for teacher education at higher education institutions. That was super cool. I'd love to talk about it more anytime anybody wants to. Since about 2014 or so, I have been in this role focusing on talent and HR, and then added learning and evaluation a couple of years ago. Before I came to the Bush Foundation, I worked for Minnesota state government for quite a bit of time in a couple of different roles. My last role at the state was as Deputy Commissioner for Minnesota Management and Budget, and in that role did a lot of work on some statewide initiatives looking at how to bring the 24 then state agencies together into some work around leadership development, workforce development, IT infrastructure, a whole range of things. I loved that job because the range of things I got to do was so immense. And it really related to my core driving passion, which is really about how do you create conditions in workplaces, in life, for great things to happen. So I got to do that on large scale in Minnesota state government. Earlier work had been in program evaluation as well. So some of that same core around how do you figure out what you need to learn, what you are learning, and make sure that the conditions are there for good things to happen. I get to do that every day in my work at the Bush Foundation with Kim and Joni and all the other 33 people that work here. And so that is like being in a candy store every day. I really am glad to be able to continue to ask the questions about what we need to learn and what we learn. So I think you'll hear us talk probably throughout about the learning culture that we try to nurture all the time. And it's really core to the job that we're filling here too. So we'll talk some more about that. I think I'm going to turn it to Joni to talk a little bit about the operating values that drive the Bush Foundation.
Stephanie. So yeah, these are our 5 operating values, which are core to all the work that we do each day. You'll also see them listed on our website and the job posting. There are values which help guide the decisions that we make every day at the foundation and are a big part of how we operate. We look for people who can embrace and demonstrate these values in both their work and with our colleagues. So the first one is to spread optimism. We really encourage everyone internally and externally to think big and differently. We also promote positive, supportive interactions with each other in our work. The second one, work beyond ourselves. We are a very collaborative group and share a lot of information, whether it's a project we're working on together or an informal event. We are also intentional when to lead and when to follow. Third one, everybody matters. We have very open, inclusive processes. We really instill equity throughout everything that we do. One example is we have an open process to almost all projects where we are continually bringing in external partners or consultants to potentially work with. We are very intentional with this process and with this operating value of everybody matters. Next is to steward well. In stewarding well, we really hold ourselves accountable for not only the work, but how we steward our funds with a deep appreciation and understanding of Bush's history going back to the early 1950s. And the final one is more good every year, kind of what Stephanie had talked about, or MIGI is a short way to say it. We are a learning organization, and we exist with this core mission in mind. We believe that each year we can grow and learn to do more good. You'll see some of this in the questions each of us asks and all the learning opportunities we have both together and as an all-staff group and individually on our own. So now, changing gears a bit, I want to introduce you more fully to our search partners. Here with us today are Jamie and Jen from Bollinger Leafblad, the search firm that we've asked to work with us on finding our next grant-making officer in South Dakota. If you end up applying for the job, they're likely the first people that you'll talk with, and we wanted you to get a chance to get to know them. So with that, I'll hand it off to Jamie and Jen to introduce themselves and their role in the search process.
Hi, we are so excited to be here today to share more about the search, about how we'll be engaging with candidates throughout the process. I'm Jamie Millard, a partner at Ballinger Leafblad, and I'm joined by my colleague, Jen Hanlon-Ash, who will introduce herself in a second here. And we are, as Joni said, the lead partners on the search. We are who you'll be interacting with, who will be emailing you, who will be talking to you. And we're excited to get to know as many of you as possible. Ballinger Leafblad was founded by Marcia Ballinger and Lars Leafblad in 2014. And as a firm, we are dedicated to strengthening civic leadership. We see every search as an opportunity to build relationships, foster collaboration, elevate organizations through exceptional leadership. Our firm has had the honor of working with Bush Foundation on several past key leadership roles. And on a personal note, I was formerly an executive director for a nonprofit that was a longtime grantee of Bush Foundation. And our geographic service area actually included South Dakota and the Native nations that share that same geography. So personally, I'm very much looking forward to being able to connect and reconnect with communities and leaders throughout the region. And now I'll hand it over to my colleague Jen to share a little bit more details about the search, the process, and the timeline.
Right. Hi, everyone. I'm Jen Hanlon-Ash. I am also a partner at Ballinger Leafblad. I've been there for since 2021. Prior to that, well, I've been in an executive search since about 2017. And then prior to that, I worked at Minnesota Public Radio and American Public Media for about 15 years in human resources, and was really had the amazing opportunity to watch that organization grow and change through all of the media changes we've all experienced. And did recruiting, employee relations, learning and development, even a little bit of benefits, though that's never been my strength. So I'm really thrilled to work with the Bush Foundation. And I'll tell you a little bit about our process. For the search, we'll be actively identifying and engaging with potential candidates who align with the Bush Foundation's needs and the vision. Applications are open now and will be accepted through April 18, 2025. We encourage you to submit your materials as soon as possible, as we'll begin reviewing applications on a rolling basis. Jamie and I will be managing the initial review process, and our process is designed to be transparent and supportive. We'll be reviewing applications, and that includes cover letters, which I would emphasize particularly is important in that is the way that we really get to know you and hear in your own words how you believe your skills and qualifications align with what you read in the position profile. So we'll conduct initial screening followed by an in-depth interview that explores leadership competencies and alignment with the role. From there, we'll work closely with the hiring team to identify top candidates for interviews. We'll also guide candidates through every step, ensuring they feel prepared and confident. We really prioritize making ourselves accessible and being responsive. We really have an informal style of communication with our candidates. We meet people where they're at. We're comfortable texting folks to give them an update, and we want to keep those lines of communication open, so no one feels like they've sent their application off into the black hole, which of course we all have felt that way at some point or another. But once we complete this final interview, or this initial interview, first round interviews will take place May 7 through 14 via Zoom. These conversations will give us an opportunity to get to know you better and for you to ask questions about the role in our team. From there, final interviews will follow, also via Zoom. These will be deeper conversations with key members of Bush Foundation's team. The target start date for this role is June 16, 2025. We're excited to find the right candidate for this role, and we look forward to supporting all candidates throughout this process. If you have any questions about the timeline or the hiring process, don't hesitate to reach out. And I'll turn it back to Joni.
Yeah, I will actually take it from here. This is Anita, and thank you,
Oh.
Jen and Jamie, for all of your work and for, I think, just laying out so clearly what people can expect. That is huge as folks are going through the process. Wanted to give you a chance to just know a little bit about the grant making team, the team that you would join if you took on this role. You see pictured and named here the grant making team. This is a team that works really collaboratively together. And you may hear folks say collaboration is a part of culture in lots of different spaces. It is really at the heart here. So when you are making decisions, you're almost always making them with a team. When you're having discussions, you're always thinking about how might other people see this and getting conversations with others. So I think that's a big thing to know, that if you join this group, you really are joining a group. We want someone, of course, to have individual agency, to bring their own perspective, and to know that they'll need to work together with others in order to make anything happen. This is also a group that is by its nature decisive. We are often making decisions about, will we fund something, will we not? Where should we use the resources? And that's, of course, financial, but also time. How do we spend our time across the region? Where do we engage with people? We have to be pretty decisive about that and understand trade-offs. So if you're a person who likes to kind of think through trade-offs and then make a path forward, this could be a great space for you. It's also a group that thinks a lot about the context of the region we serve. As I mentioned at the beginning, we live in a really diverse region in lots of ways. This is a diverse team that brings a huge range of lived experience, of professional expertise, of racial and cultural background. All of that comes into our conversations, and we expect each of us to continue learning about identities, communities that we may not be part of. What does it mean to move innovation forward in those communities? We also ask you to share what you know of the communities you are part of, to help with discussions, to help people understand what's effective in communities, how we might see things differently if we were really rooted in what's happening across the region. And then I would say we have a long-standing commitment to Native nations, to investing in Native nations, to tribal sovereignty. So it's a team that works to understand that whether or not they're Native themselves, we hold that as a responsibility for team members, that we keep building our own understanding. You'll notice that some team members have pictures, some don't. This is just one example of our values coming to life. So this idea that everybody matters, that how you choose to put yourself forward matters, and we want to have your input. Some people don't want their pictures out for a whole variety of reasons, so just wanted to name that that's why you see that on this screen. You heard me talking a little bit about what we are thinking with this job, what might help you be successful, or the kinds of skills that draw you to this work. I'll just say a little bit more about it because there's a lot to the grant-making officer role at the Bush Foundation, but there's a few big buckets that I'll talk about to kind of help just get a picture of what we're talking about. So one, of course, this role is located in South Dakota, so we'll be looking for you to help us continue to build and strengthen relationships across South Dakota. That does not mean you have to hold all relationships and all things South Dakota. We also expect our staff to be kind of in person across South Dakota, understanding what's happening, but we'll look for you to be a guide in that and to be a real anchor. Of course, you're assessing grant applications against funding criteria. We have resources that we want to steward well in the community, and that means we're always needing to make choices. So how do you think through, given what our strategy is, does a given idea fit? Does an individual feel ready to explore their leadership? Providing feedback to applicants. So we strongly believe that if someone takes the time to apply to funding at the Bush Foundation, we want to give them feedback. That is a way to honor what they have given us in their stories, in their hopes. And we want to give them specific feedback, even if sometimes we're delivering them, you know, a no answer, which is not what they were hoping for. So we need somebody who can be comfortable, and we can keep building those skills, but can be comfortable delivering feedback and saying no when that is necessary. Someone who can really identify what are those transformative investment opportunities across the region. Where do you see momentum building in a community about an idea that could really transform not only that community, but might be able to spread across a region? Where do you see leaders who seem really primed? They're leading change, and if they got an opportunity to invest even more in their leadership, they might be able to scale that impact in ways even they hadn't imagined. So somebody that can really be on the lookout for that, can spot it, can cultivate it. And then, of course, managing grantee relationships. So for those that we have said yes to their application, being able to offer coaching, offer support as they work through the grant that we've given. And then someone who is interested in being part of an organization, that you want to contribute to cross-foundation conversations, to work to our strategic goals, that's a part of you. You see this work as a part of a whole, and you want to be engaged in those conversations. So that was a lot, but I think that we'll move now to a little bit of who we're looking for as we talk about this. Oops.
Yeah. What a great job, right? I look at that, big smiles as I think about who would be the kind of person who could do that, all those things that Anita has laid out. And these are the kind of things we think would be really important for you to see yourself in if that job appeals to you. That we can imagine people with lots of different experiences that could bring just the right set of experiences into this job. So we think it's these things. We think that we'd be looking for a generalist with broad knowledge of South Dakota's communities. So that probably means that if you're someone who's spent a career working on one issue in one place, the kind of breadth of understanding, the ability, as Anita was talking about, to spot transformational opportunities, we think that probably it means you've had experience in a couple different issue areas or communities or doing things in different contexts. That's our guess. For sure, we're looking for people who are highly relational, emotionally intelligent, culturally aware. If you're someone who really prefers to work on your own, head down without dealing with people a lot, may not be the right job for you. We need those people to do all the work we're all trying to do across the region, but really looking for someone who is excited at that idea of making connections with people that they don't know, and then connecting those people. So some of that kind of thinking about how the network can help inform the work we're doing. Organized, detail-oriented, skilled at managing multiple projects independently. Probably all of you who are listening to this have that ability to manage a lot of things at once. This job requires that, and so want that to be something that's part of your skill set and that you enjoy. Same thing with comfortable with travel, planning, and engagement. Obviously, there is travel around the region for this work, both in South Dakota, across the whole region, and coming to the Twin Cities. That is part of all the grant-making jobs that we have. And then as you heard us talk about, hopefully by now you're getting that whole idea about learning really core to the way that we do our work, and looking again for somebody who is always kind of bringing in what they have, the whole range of experiences, and excited about learning more. Those are some of the things that we think are particularly important for this job. Anita, what would you like to emphasize more clearly that I didn't?
I don't think it's more clearly. Maybe I'll just affirm a couple of things. One, that dance between helping people dream and really think about what's possible, whether it's for their individual leadership or for an idea that their organization, their community might hold. So the balance between that, helping people dream, and then the analytical skills to be able to say, is something a fit for our funding or not? That is both a huge honor. It's so great to be in conversations with people. And it's hard because you're going to have to say no to some people's dreams and to some people's hopes. And it might just be a no for now. They can come back. But really want to be honest that dance that is a part of this job and a significant part of it. And then I think the second thing that I would just really underscore is we are looking for someone who gets and has a sense of the broad population base in South Dakota. So that means everything from more rural spaces to more urban spaces. That means immigrants and refugees. That for sure includes Native nations. So even if you don't know all of those things, can you be honest and name what you do know, where your strengths are, and where you might need to grow? That's something we love to see. None of us is going to know everything, but can you help us understand something from your perspective? And can you be open to others' perspectives? Maybe I'll stop there.
Thanks, Anita. That's so great. Definitely agreeing with both of those, as Anita was saying, and that kind of sense of possibility that you're trying to both support and engender in those you're talking to, and the reality that a lot of those conversations will end up being this was amazing, probably not a fit for the Bush Foundation, sometimes after a long series of conversations and thinking about how might you connect them and be supportive. That's a tough balance. A lot of people are drawn to foundation jobs because the idea of giving away money, quote unquote, is wonderful. And it's also saying no a lot. Our partners in search, Jamie and Jen, would have some of that same job, that you get to talk to lots of people and you stay excited with them all along the way. And sometimes you end up having to give them the news they don't want. How do you make that be still a good interaction? Looking for all of those skills. I'm going to stop talking about that because I'm actually supposed to talk about other things. So going on to the next slide around working for the Bush Foundation, some of the nuts and bolts. We want to get you familiar with some of those things you may be wondering about too. These are all in the profile that you've already seen, but I just want to emphasize a couple of things. You'll see there the salary, $124,013, very specific. You can guess that we did not just come up with that as a number that we want to market. It reflects a lot of research and care. And so I want to just land on that for a minute, because it also is a way that the values we have towards equity and inclusion really show up in the way that we do our day-to-day work. We put a lot of thought into the way that we develop into our approach to compensation. We set salaries by reviewing a range of external data so that we can be sure that we're setting the salary at a rate that makes sense with what similar organizations would pay for similar roles. And once we've done that analysis, that number, that very specific number that you see there, that is what we pay. So we don't negotiate regardless of whether that's a big increase or a decrease for the candidate that we're talking to. That helps us really avoid building in inequities at the very start of a hiring of a employment situation. And we don't do that for a couple of reasons. First of all, we know from the research actually that the people who are often most comfortable negotiating hard, that reflects the power dynamics that we have in society. We don't want to build that in at the front end. And so we've seen that once we figure out what it makes sense to pay for a job, that paying that, it leads to a better experience in our overall pay equity structure. We also know that when you've just met this person who's going to be your new supervisor, probably the last thing you really want to do is enter into a tough negotiation with them about salary. So we want you to know first off that is what we do, and you need to decide if that is a pay rate that fits with what you're looking for at this point in time. You'll see there, we also talk about benefits. They're generous and competitive. Medical, dental, generous retirement, all of those things included. We also put a lot of thought into what we observe as holidays, how we do vacation and sick leave. Glad to talk more about that as we go forward. Of course, you might expect, because we've said learning about 1,000 times in this webinar so far, we have a really professional development allowances. Joni mentioned that we talk about this as a manifestation of our more good every year value. We talk about it as our Miggy bucks, and people have a generous allowance for that each year. Finally, we're going to just talk a little bit about our schedule and how we work together and when we work on our own. We have an office. We have office space in downtown St. Paul, full support for home office setup, since a lot of us work from home much of the time. What we require is that people who are based in the Twin Cities are in the office each Wednesday. Today is a Wednesday. That is why you may see some similarities in our backgrounds. There's an extra day that we're together each month. Those of us in the Twin Cities, we had one of those, in fact, yesterday, where we do some extra, we have a lunch and learn, we do some things that really lend themselves towards in-person work. For those of you for those of you applying for this job, for example, once a quarter, we have our staff who are based around the region come in so that we, in a really happy time, have a Tuesday and Wednesday time together once a quarter. And people who live outside their region, who live outside the Twin Cities, sorry, so likely this job can come, are in more often than that. But there's at least once a quarter that we're all together in our offices in St. Paul. We are currently in the US Bank building in downtown St. Paul. We're moving to this building that you see pictured on the slide there, the 428, just a couple blocks away from here, still in downtown St. Paul, and having a lot of really exciting conversations right now, thinking about what does it look like for us to inhabit that building effectively and be a good partner and neighbor to St. Paul. St. Paul was an important city to Archie Bush. He was born in Granite Falls, as we said at the beginning, but he spent most of his life working here in the St. Paul area. And so continuing to be in this downtown St. Paul is something that we're really excited and proud about. I think that is about all I'm going to say here. We're going to turn it to Kim, I think, to highlight a couple questions we think you might want the answers to.
Yeah, thanks, Stephanie. And I'll say anytime we have remote staff here, it's like a huge like welcome party. Everyone's so excited. So if you like that kind of energy, you got a lot of excited people to see your face.
Hey, Kim, can I jump in and say one more thing? I
Yeah.
realized that one of the things I should emphasize is that one of the reasons we're so excited to be in our new building is that we're getting to, we moved into this building in US Bank before hybrid was really a thing. And we're so excited as we look at our new space to really figure out how do we do it even better. So for those of you, if you ended up in this position, we think that we're going to even more effectively be able to do our hybrid conversations in a way that works for everybody. So I just want to be sure we said that, because for people for this job, it'll matter even more.
Thanks for adding that, Stephanie. All right, so on to the little Q&A section, because we know that there are some questions that people are probably have in their mind or generally thinking. And so just want to post some of them here. So I'm gonna just throw over to Anita and ask, what do you think is the biggest challenge for this role?
I think we've named a couple of them. Maybe what I'll say more specifically is that this role works across a variety of programs. It works across a region with South Dakota as a focus. And so there really is managing a lot of different kind of work at the same time. So when we talked about being able to manage multiple projects, being able to be organized, there's a lot happening, and we fully trust that staff can manage that. We give support to do so, but this is not a role where you can just kind of focus on one project for the entirety of your career and make that one thing happen. You will likely have different conversations about different topics all in one day, and that can be really energizing if you love that sort of interaction. So I think that's a big challenge.
Thanks, Anita. I'm just gonna really quick unshare so we can see each other a little bit better. And I will kind of underscore that in that with the way our organization is, with a lot of like cross foundation work, that is just emphasizing it with that kind of stuff that we do. And then Stephanie, can someone work, well, the question is, can someone work remotely for this position, but
We're both reading
you know what I mean?
that note like, man, kind of really doesn't work for this position. Absolutely, we expect, I think you've heard us say that we expect that the person for this position, we need them to be based in South Dakota so that they are able to continue the relationships that we expect that they would be bringing into this job. But I should say that generally, all of the Bush Foundation staff, we expect, we're a place-based foundation. So we ask all of our staff to live in the region that we serve. Across the region. This team, as we again mentioned, the grant-making team already has other people that live outside of the Twin Cities. So maybe it's reassuring to know that there is a really well-developed way of working in a hybrid fashion so that the grant-making team can feel like a team, even when we're not in the same place.
Thanks, Stephanie. Thanks for flipping that question so that we get that information. I was like looking for that information, yeah. Awesome. And then kind of as just our last question, I know I had this question when I was going through this process, but just wondering what it's like to work at Bush Foundation. What do you like most? So just gonna ask like each one of us to go through that in a little bit, but I can jump in first. Um, outside of maybe not outside, but underscoring some of the stuff we've already said. The learning part of our organization is really, really awesome. I really admire how supportive we are of each other's learning journeys, no matter what subject, what thing it involves, and that it creates a lot of fun connection points for people to develop and grow together. And also, like Anita said, we'll talk about being collaborative a lot. And I really do enjoy that part of our organization. It doesn't feel like you can't approach someone with a question or with, wanting to see their perspective on something. Um, People are pretty open, but at the same time are also so respectful and conscious of capacity, each individual's capacity, and what's going on with themselves as people. So that's kind of the things that I think about when I think about what I like about being here with everyone here. Um, Anita, do you want to jump in with a little bit about that? Yeah.
Well, yes and no. Like I really wanted to just say because it's hard to choose. Um, I think what's sitting with me today, of really honestly many great things, is this kind of balance of working in such a mission-centered organization where the staff of this organization truly feel accountable to the communities that we serve and are part of. And so I think that it's just alive and palpable in our conversations, in our decisions. So as much as we put, time and attention into how do we keep learning as staff, how do we keep getting a stronger internal culture, just as much expectation and support and we have to first and foremost serve the region we serve really well. So I think that balance I love, and it's not always easy, but getting to do that and to wrestle through it is fantastic.
I maybe have the same thoughtful face Anita started out with. I'm not sure what to choose or highlight because there are a lot of things. It's all the things that Kim and Anita have said, and I'm sure I'm going to agree with what Joni says too. It's great, and it's great to be at a place where I know that the things I know today are so different than what I might have known last year because I've learned so much. And that comes from the people that I work with for sure. It also comes from the communities that we work with, the people that bring their hopes and dreams to the Bush Foundation, and we get to step alongside of them for a while, whether that's in ideas that they bring to the Community Innovation Program, their leadership hopes and dreams in the Bush Fellowship. The chance to look at all of those ideas, the people, and be inspired by them, in a world where sometimes you're trying to figure out, wow, who's trying to move things along? We get to see that all the time, and that is, in addition to the things that you're going to hear from all of us, that's just amazing, and being able to be a part of that. Sometimes it's a direct part of it. A lot of times the work, I would say that sometimes my team is working on, it doesn't feel directly there. An example from this morning, talking about information management and how we really get the paper files we have ready to move to our new offices. That doesn't maybe feel so aligned with that mission. And what we're trying to do is make sure that the history of the Bush Foundation, the hopes and dreams of the people and organizations that have already come here, that we're caring about them in a way, because that is part of what's amazing to be a part of this region and to work at the Bush Foundation. So I love that. Joni, what would you add to all the effusive things that we've all just said? What would you want to add?
So, top of mind, so I'm going to finish strong with that same theme, the Miggy learning. So that's my favorite thing about Bush Foundation. And also just like our size and the diversity of our staff, which is pretty cool. You learn so much just from individuals here. And just so it kind of a deeper dive into the learning is there's always like a push pull, and we're constantly like outside of our comfort zone, just learning from each other. And it's really great too because we have community site visits, we have external learning, individual learning. So there's just so many different avenues to our growth and both professionally and personally. But then, I'm in we could talk about like heady work that we do. Just when you get to know each person individually, it's great because everybody's so down to earth and everybody's always stays curious. And it's just really like, it's an ongoing process and it's really fun.
Thanks, Jenny. And then I'm actually going to ask Jamie and Jen. So you've been doing meetings with people, with our staff around this position, just learning more about, the work and everything. And you've worked with us before. What is something that you might add to all these things that we've been saying?
Wow, so many things. Well, many of you have already said some of the things that I've heard, but I just the enthusiasm for the work and the passion, and the connection to the mission, and it seems like nearly endless possibility in this role is just, it's incredible. I think people really have commented about, respect for their colleagues, and the learning aspect is definitely a theme. Uh, I think folks too are very thoughtful about the way that they approach the work, the way that they work with colleagues. I mean, it feels like many, many things are intentional and well thought out. And there's an opportunity too, when if something doesn't work, to correct it or give feedback. And people are open to that. So those are a few of the things that I've heard. How about you, Jamie?
Thank you. I love listening to this conversation. I think something that I would just add is, you might hear that an organization is relational, and it can sound, what does that mean? I think with Bush Foundation, I've been in a long relationship with the organization. It's truly, the colleagues are relational with one another, but then you're also deeply relational with your grantees. You get to know your grantees, you get to know community members, you get to know applicants who maybe, like you said, you have to give the no to, but it doesn't feel transactional. It feels truly developmental and relational. And you have to be, I think you're someone, if you're going to thrive in the Bush Foundation ecosystem and the organization, you're going to have to be genuinely like want to get to know other people and be relational. And it just kind of oozes out of the organization. And you can sense it even here today in the webinar, how much the colleagues care about each other and like working with their colleagues. It's the same experience, even extended to the grantees, feel kind of an additional layer of that familial and relational part of the organization. So that's what I would add.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing, Jamie and Jen. So that brings us to the close of our webinar. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you found this helpful.
Hi, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.